Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs or professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through all the things that we experience in the small business world, and come out the other side willing to share those skills and experiences they've aggregated with us so that we can be better entrepreneurs. So, thank you very much, Jason. Anyone that shares time with me, spend some time on the podcast trying to bring some value to our audience is highly, highly appreciated. That effort and that energy means a lot to me. So I wanted to say thank you for being here, first of all. But why don't you
Yeah,
introduce yourself?
pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Absolutely. My name is Jason Hijuelos. I'm a CPA here in New Orleans, Louisiana. My business is Onward Finance and Accounting, which is a company that I started about a year and a half ago now. And I provide accounting advisory and consulting services to primarily not-for-profits, but I do provide support to some small local businesses here in town. On the for-profit side, I'm not opposed to a for-profit business. I just, my passion is for supporting supporting community, supporting a greater good, supporting something that's contributing here locally. So my focus is on those not-for-profit organizations and on local businesses. As far as my background, I've been an accountant for coming up on 25 years now. I graduated from LSU in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in accounting. And from there, spent a good bit of time in and out of public accounting, the client service side, actually working at CPA firms, sort of in between stints in public accounting. I worked in investor relations and SEC reporting for a large publicly traded company. And, I got back into public accounting after my wife and I had relocated to Miami. She was in graduate school. My wife is a coastal ecologist, and she did her graduate research in the Everglades. And so we were in Miami for a few years, and I got back into working for a CPA firm there. And pretty much every client I worked on was a nonprofit, and it reminded me of how much I enjoyed that work and how rewarding I felt it was. The fact that I connected with a lot of these organizations' missions made me feel a lot better about those long tax season hours that I would have to work between January and April. Because even on the audit side, we would have to put in those hours as well, so that the tax folks could get the tax returns cranked out. And I didn't necessarily feel that passionate about my automobile dealership clients or things like that. No shade on automobile dealerships. I'm a huge car guy. I love cars, but yeah, I don't feel any personal connection to the mission of a car dealership like I do a school or an environmental nonprofit or something like that. So throughout my career, a theme has always been that I've gravitated back toward that sort of mission-driven organization, and had the opportunity after my wife finished grad school and we moved back to Louisiana. We were in Baton Rouge for a while, and I went to work for a regional CPA firm here in Louisiana, and worked my way up in the not-for-profit practice in Baton Rouge, and then had the opportunity to finally come back home to New Orleans to sort of lead that practice in the New Orleans market. And it was a couple years of really getting something off the ground from scratch to the best that I could. And, I found myself all pretty frequently getting pulled back to Baton Rouge for stuff. I was real involved in training new employees, and I'd be one of the people who they'd stick out in front of a trade group or something like that to give presentations about certain accounting topics and things like that. And I think the being on the road as much as I was kind of started to get to me, because my wife and I had finally made it back home to New Orleans after being away for 6 years, and really wanted to get to the point where we were putting down roots and really based here. And I didn't want to be on the road as much as I was anymore. And an opportunity arose to become chief financial officer of a nonprofit here, a pretty large private school here in town. Actually, my high school's arch rival school. If anybody happens to be listening to this from New Orleans, I'm a Brother Martin graduate, go Crusaders. And I was the chief financial officer at Jesuit High School, which they were our arch rivals, but my dad and both my brothers went there. So they've always been okay with me. So, I got into that line of work and just really was able to dive in, and it was very rewarding work. But the tricky part about being CFO of a nonprofit or a small business is that if you're the CFO, you are probably also the human resource director and the payroll clerk and the legal department sometimes,
Right.
and you're the person who deals with, I was there when Hurricane Ida hit the school, and we had to replace the turf at our stadium. Some of the properties we owned got damaged, and I'm the one who's going back and forth with the property insurance company over claims and things like that. And
Right.
it's not necessarily what I got into accounting to be doing. And at the time, it occurs to me that I am an accountant and I just want to do accounting. And that was when the kind of kernel of a thought came into my head that I don't know that I'm going to really get to do the kind of work that I want to do with the kinds of organizations I want to do it with unless I strike out on my own. And, you know, there's a million reasons not to take that kind of a risk and put yourself out there like that. And, I had another opportunity come up to go be CFO of a law firm here in town. And that was, reliable, stable income, steady job, established firm. And I went for it. And after a year, it was very clear to me that working at a law firm was not a fit for me. And,
Sure.
I don't kick myself or anything. I try to be pretty kind to myself when I make a decision that doesn't work out. But, looking back on it, the same way I felt like I wasn't connected to what a car dealership does or what insurance agency does or something like that. I don't connect to the work that a law firm does. If it was up to me, I would never have to deal with an attorney because it would probably mean I'm being sued or something like that, which,
Sure.
you know, I have a lot of friends who are lawyers, and good for y'all. Y'all do great work, but I don't want to deal with you professionally. And so after a year of that, a lot of conversations with my wife about my frustrations in that setting, and realizing that it wasn't just that particular job that wasn't a fit. It was, I wasn't connecting with the mission of what I was working on. I wasn't passionate about the things that I was working on. And, I spent some time picking the brains of a lot of people who I respect, who either went out on their own and started their own CPA firm or just started their own business. Doesn't even have to be a CPA firm. Right behind me over my shoulder, this green skateboard deck right here is from Humidity Skate Shop. I happen to know the owner of the shop. I'm a fairly regular customer. I picked his brain about starting his own business, and he's always been pretty candid about the challenges of it. But he said, congratulations on taking that leap if that's what you're doing. And there were a lot of people who were really supportive of it, and I know for a fact that the need for an experienced accountant in the nonprofit space is a huge need. It's always a need. I know that because boards of directors are constantly looking for treasurers, and treasurers of boards of directors are kind of frequently tapped in to help with some of the higher level accounting type stuff, or they're the ones presenting the financials to the board of directors and not the bookkeeper who may or may not be an accountant. And just from talking to a lot of either small business owners or accountants who work with nonprofits and small businesses, the thing that kept coming up again is that the need is there, the work is there. A lot of the firms like the one that I used to work for don't take clients as small as the ones that I work with. So, I pride myself on the fact that I've always been easy to work with. I don't think I've ever burned a bridge in my professional career, and that's something now that is paying dividends, because I would say almost 100% of the clients that I've had referred to me that I'm either working with now or proposing on work with, all of it has been referrals from people I've either worked with in the past, worked for in the past, been on a board of directors with in the past, people who know my reputation technically from an accounting standpoint, and who know my reputation personally as someone who's very eager to collaborate and easy to work with. And so all of the feedback that I got when talking to these folks was, I think, what finally reassured me that that I got to make a go at this. There's,
Right.
it for a lot of people, it is a high risk thing to quit a job with a steady income. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that job at the law firm paid me the most money I've ever made in a year before. And I walked away from that to, my first 3 months when I left the law firm, I didn't make a dime. I spent a bunch of money on
Yeah.
software and setting up my company and liability insurance and all this other stuff. But, you know, that's the risk part of it. I would tell people it is equal parts exciting and terrifying when you're first getting started, and it has gotten less terrifying over time. I still have moments where I get nervous about stuff. We're coming up on the first full calendar year in business, which means I'm going to be doing my first. I'll be filing I won't. My CPA who does my taxes will be filing my first full year tax return, and we're going to see how good a job I estimated at keeping money in the bank to cover that tax bill. So that's a good problem to have. If I'm worried about my tax bill, that means I've been consistently providing service to people, and it's been it's been personally rewarding, and I work with a lot of nonprofits. I myself am a for-profit business, so it has been rewarding in that sense as well. I am not. You may not want to hear your accountant say something like this, but I am personally not a person who is greatly motivated by money. I'm happy if I'm making enough to pay my mortgage, and be able to go on vacation a couple times, once a year. I if I can do that kind of stuff, I'm happy. I enjoy pretty simple stuff. I'm not an expensive guy. I don't need to make a lot of money, and my goal has never been that. If it was, I would be a partner at the CPA firm I used to work for. It's always for me been a matter of the motivation for me comes from working on something I'm passionate about. And so that's, again, that's why the focus of this, business that I started is those nonprofits that are making a difference in the community. It's the small businesses that, are helping foster a sense of community. There's a lot of that, these really, there's a lot of beloved local businesses here in New Orleans. I'm sure it's the same way where you are, where they've got their regular customers, their people who are always around. That shop you can go in and chop it up and talk with the people who work there for however long. Like that sense of community. Like those are the kind of businesses that I'm super enthusiastic about supporting. And it. Like I said, it's not the kind of thing that the firm I used to work for really does a lot of work with, because it's below their radar, and that's fine. I'm happy to be below the radar.
Yeah, sure.
I kind of thrive in that environment that's below the radar like that. And so I think a lot of what comes through in the service I provide is, like it does have a lot of my, personal touch to it. I throw myself into this work if I'm your, whether I'm your outsourced CFO, which I am for a local nonprofit here. I'm actually in their office on site 2 times a week. I'm their finance guy. I'm sitting there in the office being the CFO. Or I have an environmental nonprofit that I work with once a year just to get them ready for their annual audit and to get them through their audit. And no matter what side of that spectrum you're on, if I'm there on site twice a week, or if you see me maybe once a year in person and the rest of our time is on Zoom, you've got 110% of my commitment and energy and effort when I'm working on your stuff. I don't get bored working on the stuff that I'm working on now. That I will admit, I definitely got bored and unmotivated working at a law firm and doing SEC filings and stuff like that. I don't get bored doing what I'm doing now. I love what I'm doing now. And you know, I'm really glad that the first year has worked out better than I expected it to. But even if it hadn't, and I was still kind of struggling along, if there were fits and starts, I like to think I would still be plugging away at this. But when I originally was talking about starting this business with my wife, I said, I'm going to give it 6 months. She said, I don't think 6 months is enough. You got to give it a year. And I said, I don't know if I can live with myself if I go a year without bringing money in. She's incredibly supportive, and she's like, no, I think it's a year. And it didn't need to take a year. So I've been fortunate in that regard. So that's a super long-winded explanation of my background and why I do what I do. But
Well, tell me about where
it's
you go from here, right? Because I think a lot of people start this
yeah.
small business journey with a vision that is mostly aligned with where they stand personally, right? With
Mm-hmm.
a lot, it's easy to have a lot of those things in mind of like, what am I not going to get bored with? What do I morally support? Like, what is in line with my personal ethics? And how can I support those things? And then you throw some of the business side into it, the finance side, the HR side, the management of people side, the employee side, the quoting and estimating side, depending on the industry that you're in. You spend,
Mm-hmm.
you learn sales, you learn a lot of things. And I don't I'm saying that maybe there is an opportunity to throw some of those personal ethics aside when your business starts to struggle or you're not bringing in revenue like you said, or maybe you didn't really plan that cushion to have a growth time in your small business. So, how many clients do you have now? Where do you go from here? And do you ever feel that impulse to change direction based on the amount of traction that you have, or no?
That's an awesome question. I guess
Thanks.
right now I have about 6 clients that I'm working. Well, not about. I have 6 clients that I'm working on. There's always something in the works in the pipeline. I've got a couple proposals that are out there right now for more work. I mean, obviously, if the need arose and money was an issue, the two questions that come up are, yeah, do you pivot from what your original mission statement was, or do you know cut your losses and go back to working for a CPA firm
Right.
or a law firm or whatever? And I'm fortunate that it hasn't come to that, but um, if this hadn't worked out, if we had gotten to a year in and ends weren't meeting and we were having to tap into savings to pay the mortgage and things like that, I would probably be more open to
Sure.
some things that maybe didn't exactly fit the mold of what I wanted to do. Now
Yeah, I don't think that's a
that
bad thing either. Just to
yeah,
give you my opinion on that, I think that you pivot and you move and shake when necessary. That's part of being an entrepreneur, right? And the
yeah,
the things that you learn and those processes that you establish and the relationships that you build are the things that allow you to always kind of navigate back to the North Star. So I don't think there's a wrong
absolutely.
answer. I was just purely curious. So
Yeah, no, and it's something that I'm glad you asked it. It's something that especially early on, rattle around in my head a lot. Do I need to start looking at kind of changing this game plan some? And at the time, candidly, it was a question that I tried to avoid addressing directly.
sure.
That question would come up, and I would find something else to keep myself busy with. Oh, why don't I work some more on building out this page on my website instead? I'll do that, and
Sure.
that'll keep me busy, and I won't think about this other thing that I don't want to be thinking about. And that's a hard that can be a hard decision to make. And yeah, like you said, you've got to be able to be you got to be able to adapt. I think maybe when I first started doing this, my thinking was everything I do is going to be here locally. It's going to be hyper local and super New Orleans based, and that's not a reality coming out. Like that is, I think in hindsight, maybe a little too maybe pigeonhole myself a little bit there with that.
Sure.
So I do have clients that are out of town. I just proposed on some work for a nonprofit in Detroit, Michigan. One of my for-profit clients that I have, my biggest for-profit client, their headquarters are in Colorado. The owner lives in New York. The accountant I work with for them lives in San Francisco. So everything I'm doing for them is virtual. And, that's one of those things at the beginning when I'm 3 months in and the money's not coming in and I find, oops, I got to upgrade my technical, my technology equipment. If I'm going to be doing all this stuff virtually, people need to be able to see me when I'm on camera. People need to be able to hear me when I'm talking. So now we've got the big fancy noise canceling Polycom speakerphone and the upgraded webcam. Although I've felt like I'm a little fuzzy on the camera since I bought it, so this one might be getting sent back and replaced with a with one with even better resolution. But those are some of those expenses that were going out the door up front, and some of them that I didn't necessarily budget for. And again, that's the kind of thing where that's only sustainable for so long. And so you take the work that's out of town. It's still, it's a startup, it's a small business, it's, somebody who personally I was able to talk to and connect with, and I think get along with well and work well with. And so that's a relationship I didn't see myself building. And now that it's there and it's established, that's a client. That's the client that I've had the longest. I've had that client since last November. So that was, one of the very first ones out the gate. And, my vision was hyper local and nonprofit. My first client was a for-profit, or one of my first clients is a for-profit business in Colorado. So,
You'll have to send them a one year client birthday present as well.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. And I asked that question because I want to follow it up with this, but what's kind of been your superpower? Right? Like what's been that thing that's kept you able to diligently move forward in this whole process? Because I know it's difficult, and your brain seems to work a lot like mine, where it's easy for us to make ourselves busy, right? So,
Yeah.
maintaining those relationships and letting your business form itself very naturally from the outside looking in seems like a huge asset to this whole process. But from your perspective, what's kind of been your go-to?
That has without question been the biggest thing. There's three things that I sort of pride myself on. Coming into this, I knew a lot of the assets that I had going for me are that I'm flexible. I can work anywhere. I can tell you some stories about from when I was an auditor and I was on the road all the time about some of the insane workspaces I would work in at clients. So I can work anywhere in any condition. I'm an easy person to work with. I'm personable. Growing up, my jobs were all in retail, so like those people skills got developed over.
Right.
From my first job when I was 16, I worked at a sporting goods store in New Orleans, and all through college, I worked retail jobs at the mall. So I worked retail for probably 8 years, and the people skills you pick up, being able to make yourself relatable and to find common ground with even the most difficult customer, that translates to what I do now, because so much of this is about making connections, turning those into relationships, and then growing those relationships. And then I think the third thing that I have going for me that maybe not, there are plenty of accountants who have this ability, but certainly not all of them do, is that I can speak financial. I can translate that into plain English. I can make complex financial information understandable for whatever audience I'm talking to. And that's just years of reps doing it, presenting to boards of directors who may or may not be finance people, going to the nonprofit organization conferences and giving presentations on upcoming changes in accounting and how it's going to impact your nonprofit. Just years of basically being kind of thrown into the deep end on stuff like that, and being forced to get out of my comfort zone has gotten me to a point where I can be comfortable outside of the comfort zone. And those, I think, flexibility and adaptability, uh, personability, and my ability to communicate financial information to people of varying finance backgrounds. Those are the three things that have kept this moving, and sort of the overarching thing overall that has been, I am not someone to hide my personality or pretend to be something I'm not so I can fit in. Fitting in somewhere is as important to me as the pay and the benefits at a place where I am. And uh, you know, uh, 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 there were a lot of times, like at the big public company, where the focus is on, we got to make this stock as valuable as possible for the shareholders. We got to make sure that the executive stock options are as valuable as possible. That to me is not something that is ever going to motivate me. I'm always going to be motivated by being able to help some sort of greater good. And, you know, I wasn't concerned about, I wasn't as concerned about contributing to my accounting firm's bottom line so that the partners got a bigger bonus at the end of the year. And,
Sure.
I, again, I apologize if any of them are going to see this, because I'm sure I'm going to put clips of this podcast on my LinkedIn or whatever else, and several of them follow me on there. So sorry, guys. I hope I did good work for you, but I'm sorry if I didn't care as much as I should have about your bonus. But that's just me. I there's probably not a whole bunch of other accountants out there whose Zoom background is a bunch of skateboard
Skateboards.
decks, and all lined along the wall down here are actual boards that I've skated. But that you don't get a lot of accountants who are who are into that kind of stuff. Or if you do, they don't really put that out there, because
No,
I know,
definitely not.
like those firm social events, I would find myself getting into conversations with the other accountants there, and it was always stuff like how the market was doing, or like client stuff or work stuff. And it's like, y'all, the last thing I want to talk about when I'm off the clock is more accounting stuff. Like
Sure.
that's just not me. you know,
No, I can relate to that.
or
Um,
like on casual Friday coming in and wearing just an absolutely ridiculous pair of Jordans or something like that, and people being like, "Oh God, those shoes are hideous. Those are terrible. You can't." Why? It's like, nobody else here at the accounting firm is a sneakerhead either, I guess. So,
yeah. No, I can relate to that. I can relate. I mean, I've been very fortunate for the company that I'm at. Really built a very hospitable environment to me, especially at the age and the place that I was in my life, to start growing a book of business and take the lumps on the head and learning opportunities for what they were. I've been very appreciative, but not every professional work environment is for everyone, right? And
yeah,
you have to find that, not only that place where you can be the most productive, but you also have to find that thing that's going to push you to do the things that most people won't do to be successful, right? Like when you can align the things that typically are things that you don't like to do, but you align them with a mission that's important to you, you'd be surprised at the things that you can overcome, and the business that you can generate, and the value that you can bring for people, especially if you really put an emphasis on maintaining the relationships that you aggregate through your professional life. So, um, I think you're doing a lot of good things, my friend. I really do. I think it's really cool where you're going. My client, I don't look like the typical credit card processor either. You should
I
hear some
wouldn't
of the conversations.
guess.
Yeah, no, and I look forward to connecting you with some of the people in my network, because I know your expertise will be much appreciated,
Yeah,
as well as your character. As well as your um unapologeticness, just to be yourself like that. That's interesting to me. It's exciting to me, because I've always, and my company has always backed us, kind of cutting our, I just saw my boss walk by my windows wearing Rolling Stones t-shirt. So um but yeah, I look forward to connecting you with some people in my network. I just have one more question for you, in case someone in the audience is listening to this. They need to know how to get a hold of you. They want to buy something from you. They have a referral or a connection for you. How do people find you?
Absolutely. So my email is jason@onwardcpas.com. My website is onwardcpas.com. And I'm fairly certain on every social at Onward NOLA. So that's I'm on Instagram, kind of. I
Kinda.
exist there. If you DM me on
In the
Instagram,
future,
I
you'll be
will
on
see
there,
it.
huh?
I'm not the world's greatest content creator, but Onward NOLA on Instagram is probably your best bet. But I also am on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook as well. I don't get into the Twitter sphere because
I
no good
think
can
you're
come of
gonna
that.
be excellent at making content when you start.
Uh, we'll see. Now that I've actually gotten all of this equipment out of the box and put it together, I'm much more likely to try and do something. I have a bunch of ideas written down. I have, you know what? I'm gonna make a liar out of myself. It's not in my pocket because I got home from the gym, hurried up and washed up, and came up here and sat down in the chair and turned everything on. But I usually have a little notebook in my back pocket where ideas get written down during the day. And if anybody else found that notebook, they would have no idea what was going on in there because there's there's like well, funny observations about stuff I see on the street. There's ideas of things that I can cook next week. Ideas for content that I can make for social media for my business. So yeah, somebody's going to look at that and be like, "What does red beans and rice have to do with nonprofit accounting?" So, but whatever. But it's something that I look forward to doing when I have some time to do it. But at the same time, if I don't have time to do it, then I'm probably keeping myself busy serving a client. So not a bad problem to have.
Well, regardless, I mean, if you're pretty happy where you are, you're doing something right. You know what I
Uh,
mean?
yeah, I've never felt better about what I'm doing professionally than I do right now. So it only took me 25 years to get here. So
I
you
think
know,
that's a
if
killer testimony to just small business in general, though, if I'm being honest with you. Um, it's funny even when you don't live up to your own personal definition of success, or you have this delusion of grandeur, like I'm really going to come in this first year and blow it out of the water, which I'm not saying that's for you, but I think that's a very common thing of here's your expectations and then here was the reality after. The amount of um just the sense of accomplishment that you get from even going as far as you did in a calendar year is so rewarding. You know what I mean? It's almost like I said it all the time on this podcast, where you really have to find that bar of like where I'm going to be happy and not make a habit of like sliding it away from yourself as you
yeah,
advance on your journey. Um, if you could stay somewhere around that bar or above it and just find a way to be happy, find a way to stay kind of in tune with your work and with your clients and build those relationships, I think that it's a wonderful recipe to be successful, because I think your business comes from a really good place in your heart. So, thanks for the time again. It does mean a lot for the audience. Burn the ship. We've heard a wonderful testimony from Jason about um, exactly the power of aligning your personal ethics with what you want to do on a day-to-day basis professionally. If you have those skills, you are more than capable of becoming the entrepreneur that you want to be. We'll handle everything from here production wise. um, we'll get to editing, we'll cut some clips, thumbnail it up, all that. Sorry if you're in the audience, you're already seeing all that. But once we get done, I'll reach back out to you. I hope that you use some of this stuff as well, because I think you're very interesting. If you want your CPA to not bore you to sleep during your meeting, I think that you, Jason, would probably be a wonderful option. So
if yep.
if you have anything to leave the audience with, please don't let me handicap your time on this platform, because I know that people that are still listening are thankful to have heard your perspective. But that's all for me. So until next time, burn the ship and let me know if you need me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bailey. I appreciate you for having me.
Yep.